Without further ado, there we go. Okay. So look, folks, I think that's been a minute or two. Folks will keep trickling in as they will, but I want us to get rolling because we don't want to be here later than we need to tonight. I thank you for everyone for giving their Wednesday night to come and hear about the Heron Park Community Center, the proposal for the new field house that's going to be in Heron Park. So I just wanted to briefly say that I'll be facilitating tonight. So I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Miles. I work in Councillor Menard's office on planning and development files, but I'm also sort of the office liaison for the Heron Park community. And so it's in that role really that I'll be facilitating tonight. I also have Phil Castro here, who's the city, usually I say the city planner on the file, but I I guess it's not a development application per se. It was in the city lead, the file lead at the city for this file. And Phil, when I throw to you, I'll let you introduce the other two folks on the call from your side of things, and then Councillor Menard on the call as well. So we'll start with just some remarks from Councillor Menard, and then we'll go into the presentation from Phil and company, and then after that we're excited to hear from folks in the community in terms of their feedback. Okay, so we'll have a Q&A session at that point, and we'll be using the raise hand function for that. Okay, so Sean, are you able to unmute yourself and get us
I'm
started?
here. Thanks so much, Miles. Yeah, a big thank you to Miles for hosting tonight. Miles does a lot of the hosting in our office for things like development applications, and is great at making sure that we include everyone's voices. And that's exactly what tonight is about: is hearing your feedback for the community center. I know this is something that is near and dear to our hearts in the Capital Ward office. We campaigned on this, we committed funding for this, we followed through for this, and really want to make sure that this is what the community wants at the end of the day, and that your feedback's heard here and incorporated in. And to that point, I just want to thank Phil Castro as well, who I know has worked hand in hand with the community and has been really an excellent advocate for this area. So this has been needed for a very long time. It has a long history of kind of being started and stopped, and then having federal funding and not having federal funding. And it's sat there for a long time, and it's been needed to be refurbished. So we committed a lot of ward funds through our cash in lieu of parkland to get this started. There's still some money left required, as I understand it, from the city to do this, which it looks like we're going to be able to secure. And so we want to go out to tender as soon as we can in early 2024. So we're trying to work that out and have it so that this can be built sooner rather than later, so that residents in the area can enjoy it. So just wanted to say you're in really capable hands tonight with Miles and Phil and the rest of the city staff team. And that Miles will be recording, of course, and then we'll be taking that feedback and incorporating it in as much as possible. I feel really, I guess, proud so far that we've been able to commit the funding for this, but there's a little ways to go, and I just want to make sure that your needs are being met with this in the near future. So we were out there just last Wednesday, I think, for one of those free barbecues, the Community Association free barbecues they've been offering, doing an incredible job building community in that area. So just love this part of Ottawa, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Miles and Phil after this session, all the feedback that you have. So get in touch with us directly if you need anything, but I'm going to pass it back to Miles' capable hands, and he'll be with you for the evening. So I hope everyone has a good night.
Thanks so much, Sean. And yeah, those hot dogs were great at the barbecue. I may or may not have had 3, which is perhaps too many, but really appreciated that, and to see folks in person. So look, one of the things that we need to get done on this file still before we can proceed, of course, is the community feedback portion. I know there's been ongoing feedback, but tonight is sort of the official public consultation that the city hosts. So Phil, let's go over to you so you can show us the different proposals, and you can inform folks before they provide their feedback. Over to you, Phil.
Excellent. Thanks, Miles. Okay. For those that don't know me, I have been involved in at least, as the councillor alluded, this project has had different lives. At least for this incarnation, where we actually received ward funding from the councillor's office to build this. It has been with me and it's going to stay with me. So we've been at it for, it seems like a while. We are moving briskly. We're very happy. My name is Phil Castro. I am the parks planner. John Cron is the newest addition to the team. He is the infrastructure services project manager. He's the one that does all the work behind the scenes. I just get to talk to all of you. So from the last time we met, we did manage to secure an architect. That is Robert Matthews, and N45 is his firm. So he has a number of architects that have been working with him from his office as well on this. So essentially what we did is, as you know, we've met before, and I managed to combine everything that I had collected from those meetings, as well as what we managed to collect from the Engage Ottawa site as well, and specifically from the community association as well. This is a community meeting, not necessarily a community association meeting. We have had other meetings with the community association. I know a number of you are part of the community association and have been a part of those meetings anyway. So basically there's been a lot going on, and we've been soaking it all up. And finally, we are back now with a program basically showing where it is that we have wound up. So we have heard some comments back from the community association. We've heard some comments back from community members. But on top of that, we have taken this plan out to city staff, specifically members of the Parks Department, and basically solicited their input as well into the plan that we have for this building. It is a field house, so the expectation that it be a field house is there. I will anecdotally share that when I shared it with the city, they were all kind of looking at it like, this is the Cadillac of field houses. And it's like, well, yeah, but this is, it's 2023, and this is what field houses are going to look like now and in the future. It's not the field house from 1967, which I think is where this one dates back to. It's one of those centennial buildings. So essentially, we don't necessarily know specifically what the future of the building will hold, but we know what kind of a building we want generally. So with that in mind, N45 set out, and Robert, I'm going to call on you in a minute to introduce yourself and maybe take us through the rest of these. But I do want to remind everybody, I am the planner on the file. I have been since, like I said, this iteration has started. I'm going to continue to be. If you have anything to add, please email me or give me a call. I am here. I am relatively easy to reach. I do have a lot of other things going on, but I will get back to you. And most importantly, whatever comment you do share with me, it will get registered. It will not get forgotten. And sometimes those nuggets of gold are buried in, a casual email that can be sent, or just a quick comment that can be left. But when those catch our eye, something important, they do wind up in the project. So I just want to kind of really drive it home that the public is a very, very valuable tool in producing the best possible building. So with that said, Robert, if you're there, I will be controlling the slides for you. But if you want to give us a little bit of background on where you started and where we are now, we can go through that, and then maybe a quick Q&A afterwards, and we can see if we can answer some of the bigger outstanding questions that the community association and even the councillor's office may have.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I thought I'd start by just telling you a little bit about us. You would know us. We were the architects for the Rink of Dreams at Ottawa City Hall, the 150 hockey rink on Parliament Hill during our centennial or bicentennial. Nepean City Hall, we worked with Moriyama Tashima on Ottawa City Hall. We were the architects for the baseball stadium, the 2 cents plexes. We have done a lot of recreation and community centers throughout Eastern Ontario and the Maritimes as well. So we're kind of familiar with, as Phil was saying, like the change in how buildings are being used. And we've seen those changes even in the last few years. The demographics have changed. You know, the children going to recreation centers are interested in different sports now. Huge changes happening, and it's really tough to keep up with all those changes, but we try to do our best. We've been to Heron Park and walked around, and the building is a centennial building. You know, I guess at one time it was a lovely post and beam building, but it's been kind of neglected, and it's not particularly friendly with the site. It's kind of encapsulated amongst itself. It doesn't have good visibility from the streets, or really a very appropriate access from the street. From the park, the parking's almost non-existent along the edge of the road, and access to the pool to the north of the site, and the rink to the south of the site. Site sloped, so it presents some challenges for accessibility, and I think we've addressed those, and we'll continue to look at that. We've worked on obviously, yeah, you can switch to the next slide if you want. Please, thank you. You know, we've worked on a lot of different options for this, and we've kind of narrowed it down to 3, which we think kind of solves most of the issues with the site and access to the building, or access from the building to the, you know, the park, to, you know, the recreation to the north, which is the pool. There's some tennis courts, some play structures. There's a lot of things happening to the north of the site, and the rink in the winter to the south of the site. The challenge for us was the connection to those existing facilities, and I think it's important. There's an opportunity to make a connection to the park around the site. It's really quite beautiful. The street is beautiful. There's the Sawmill, I think it's the Sawmill Creek ravine to the west of the site. But it doesn't really, as a building on a site, it doesn't really respond to how buildings are used today. The space is compressed. It's not, you know, internally, I say compressed in terms of that the ceiling heights aren't high in it, so it's not a particularly welcoming building, and certainly doesn't make use of natural light or you know, access visually to the park. Our program was to provide a couple of multi-purpose rooms, each one of a different size, a rink change room, mechanical and electrical, obviously, kitchen with a servery with some potential of access from to the kitchen from the outside, some general storage, men's and women's washrooms, universal washrooms, and then change rooms for the hockey in the winter, and a small office for staff and supervision. And obviously, all of that has to encompass the needs for accessibility and dealing with gender issues of today. So it's really important that we look at those. Next slide, please, Phil. So as I mentioned, we had come up with three schemes. We've tried to look at the relationship of the building and the spaces to the site. So on this slide, on the right-hand side of the site, you will see that we've introduced 3 parking spaces, one of which is accessible, a handicap stall. We've pulled those in off the road and then reconfigured the pedestrian and bike circulation around that. To the south of the parking, you'll see that we have a walkway leading up to the front entrance of the building. And that walkway will be wide enough that, you know, large groups of people can obviously go to the building, but if there's an emergency vehicle that needs to come up to the building in a situation, that it's wide enough to accommodate that. We have in this particular scheme, the main entrance facing Clover Street. As you enter it, it's a fairly wide space, about 8 to 10 feet wide. There's the ability to hang your coats there, and if it's off season, remove your boots, and then take advantage of the multi-purpose rooms. We have a large one in the upper right-hand corner, and you can see the blue arrow. So we have large windows that are providing visibility to the park and to the street. So there's a good opportunity to see into the building and see that it's being used and enjoy that activity. The orientation is trying to capitalize on working with the site and not cutting down any trees or minimizing the reduction in any trees on the site. So that's part of our sustainability approach to site development. That multi-purpose room has storage in there for chairs and tables. It's adjacent to a kitchen, so it can be, coffee and light refreshments can be served to the room. The second room in the southwest corner is showing a window to the west side of the site and some storage in that room. We recognize that there's some need to provide safety on the site, so we haven't determined really the sizes of any of these windows. Certainly on the west side of the site where it's less supervised, maybe those windows are high level up just to bring in some natural daylight and reduce any damage that could happen to the building. I have to point out on this scheme that the change rooms and the universal washroom for the rink are at the low side of the site. So you would walk out of the change rooms at ground level, if you will, grade level with the rink. You would access that from the east end of the site. We have a barrier-free ramp of a slope of 1:15, which is gentler than what is required in the Ontario Building Code. It meets the City of Ottawa accessibility standards. That's the zigzag, it's actually labeled ramp, that's right there. And to the right of that, we have steps down onto the site, and we're proposing some terracing in the side of the hill so that, if there's spectators, they can sit there, or parents, and watch the hockey game. The remainder of the building is on the upper half of the site. And again, it has two, one male, one female barrier-free washrooms and a universal washroom, and access from the north end towards to the pool area. Scheme 2, or option 2, is a linear building, and it reaches a little bit further north into the site, so there would potentially be some thinning out of the trees up there. Its location isn't necessarily final yet, and in all of these schemes, the locations aren't necessarily final yet. Parking on Clover Street is the same. Access to the building is further to the north, where the arrow points to the vestibule. The ramp to the ice level starts at that upper level near that entrance adjacent to the street, and terraces down in 3 flights to the rink, and again in a 1:15 slope. We're showing again stairs down to the rink, and there's kind of a deck podium, if you will, where we call retaining wall, where people could gather and be at a higher level and watch the hockey or the figure skating or family skating on the rink. That's just to the right of the kitchen. Change rooms again are on the lower level. And I'm looking at this and thinking that I can even improve the design there by putting the entrance really facing the rink and moving the barrier-free or the universal washroom to the north of that space, and opening up some windows and making it a bit brighter. Again, 2 multi-purpose rooms, one's large and one small, both on the west side of the lobby, and with windows capturing the daylight on the west side of the building. Lobby's very visible from from Clover Street in this particular scheme. And again, there would be a bench and coat hooks in the lobby for hanging up your coats during the off season. The two male-female washrooms, again, both barrier-free, a universal washroom, and an office meeting room adjacent to the vestibule, just north of the vestibule, with supervision of the corridor and who comes and goes through the vestibule. A little bit closer to the pool on this particular scheme, and also being long and thin, a bit of a closer relationship to the rink as well. Third scheme, similar orientation. The building is a bit wider in this because we were, I guess, changing the shape of the washrooms and the configuration of the circulation. Again, it faces Clover Street. The lobby is very similar, with the ability to hang coats and boots and a bench for changing your boots. Kitchen still in the bottom southeast corner, and the stairs and a different configuration of the ramp down to the rink, a bit of a switchback one. So it's not as daunting as the long, narrow, or long, linear ramp in the scheme too. A bit more user-friendly in that respect. Office meeting room, again, supervising the lobby and the vestibule and the universal washroom in the north. Mechanical and electrical rooms, always pretty well in the southwest corner of the building. And that's pretty well it. I mean, we haven't got to the point where we're visualizing actually what the building looks like, but we're looking for something that has a bit more presence than the current scheme. It'll probably have a pitched roof for easy maintenance, and providing some shade with overhangs to the entrances and protection from the weather. But beyond that, we're not there yet, and it's still in design development. So we're obviously looking for feedback from you, the community. And that's the quick overview. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Robert. Phil, is it time now to move to the feedback and Q&A portion of the event, or were there other aspects you wanted to speak to before we do that?
No, we can jump right into it. I mean, preemptively, I will say we are leaning towards having the building on the angle. So I believe it's option one. Yeah, we've talked internally. This is city staff, and the parking comment resonated with us in the first place. In the first series of meetings, where everybody was like, "Don't put a parking lot. What do we want a parking lot in a park for?" Of course, we agreed with that, which is how we've managed to get this parking solution. And now that we've discovered that the size of the building and meeting the objectives, if we don't skew the building, we may wind up losing some large trees. We don't want to do that. So essentially, I just want to preface by saying we're leaning strongly towards something in option one. However, with that said, and within the confines of that design, things can still be moved around. So if there is a preference to move rooms around within that configuration, that's certainly an option that we still have. With all of that said, we haven't made any decisions. We just really aren't looking to pave a park or have trees taken down in a park. So that's the only kind of disclaimer I wanted to throw front. And I noticed that Linda did leave a comment early as well, saying that the title page says community center, and I've been referring to this as a field house. This is a field house. So a field house is a community building, but Linda, good catch. A community center is obviously something much different, and that is not what we're doing. So just you will not see that cover page again and pretend you didn't see it.
It's what the city should be funding here, but is not. Anyways, thank you for that disclaimer, Phil, and thank you for being clear that it's not just we're not just inviting folks to say, I want option 1, 2, or 3. It's an
No.
invitation to actually comment on the options themselves, including modifying the options themselves. So happy you made that clear. I'd like to move to the floor now to residents. Could you please use your raise hand function on Zoom, and I will go to you when I see you with your hand up. I can also read questions in the chat or comments in the chat, but I'm going to prioritize folks that are putting their hand up. Let's get rolling with Nick Wilson.
Thanks, Miles. A couple of quick questions. The buildings 2 and 3 have multi-purpose rooms 1 and 2 beside each other. Would they have an opening partition that we could expand into one big room?
They potentially could. We have looked at that option. N45 actually suggested that. But John and I, from the operational side, those dividers, they tend to break. They also don't necessarily perform their function that efficiently. Like where it's supposed to contain sound from one room to the other, they rarely do. But it's a great point to raise, and it's one that we are still mulling over. So Nick, if I'm to, like, you would prefer to have a divider that kind of works, kind of doesn't, could kind of break, maybe, like, that's pretty on the spot, but
I think one of the functional issues with the current building is having too many small rooms that can't accommodate one big group. So
Right.
to go with several smaller rooms in a building that may not be like too big to begin with, you know, just being able to accommodate more people for bigger meetings or, you know, bigger events, that type of stuff, I think would be a priority. So.
okay, fair enough. And so we, like I said, we have that on our radar. So, I mean, and if anybody else has any comments or, I mean, any ideas on that, either way, and if you're feeling shy, email them. If you want to raise your hand, by all means, raise your hand, because Nick, like, you nailed it, basically. I mean, if you look at it, the other ones, they sort of beg to have that kind of rollback door between them. So it was on the original plans, but like I said, they don't always do what they're supposed to do. They're expensive and they often break.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. You like constant maintenance and whatnot is not something we're after. So, which like I kind of think of with the lobby as well. Like, do we need to have a separate lobby in the entrance, or is it better just to have, you know, bigger principal rooms?
Lobbies have been hugely successful in all of our modern buildings. It winds up being a stroller garage and a waiting room for parents. So we call it a lobby, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a bench along it and there aren't hooks.
Right.
So if there's an event going on, people will almost always wind up collecting in that lobby. And they do in some of our buildings that don't have those lobby spaces. Just as an example, there's a new field house in La Roche Park. Every single time I've been in there and we've done multiple tours, we wind up spending the most time in the lobby. It's a truly bizarre thing that sort of has been coming out, but it's like that lobby space is, it's almost disingenuous calling it a lobby. It's more, it's like it's a, you know, a de facto meeting room or like a gathering space.
Like a loading zone at the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. And then just two other quick comments and then I'll get out of the way. I think having seating there on the outside, like close to the stairs, would be great. People do use the benches there a lot that overlook the field. I noticed that one of the options didn't have a seating area there. So, and then I think having the kitchen on the field side instead of the pool side would probably be most functional for the type of events that we tend to have.
Okay, you know what, Nick, that's actually a really, really good point, because I don't know how the barbecues work, and we have also talked about the kitchen. It can be easily moved to either side, but we don't know where people like to be.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the kitchen, the rink side is kind of, that's the natural gathering place?
Yeah, the Wednesday night hot dog program usually has games set up in the field. So it tends to be people in the field and then coming back to the building. And then the only other time that I know we use the kitchen regularly is for Winter Carnival, which obviously has the rink as the main point for that. So yeah. But thanks for everything you folks are doing. It looks amazing.
Thanks for the really thoughtful feedback, Nick, and for getting us started in a good way here. I want to go to Linda next, who I see his hand is raised. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'd like to add my voice to a large room. That's been our main requirement. We've been using the field house as our meeting space for the past 15 odd years, and we really can't accommodate more than about 12 people around the tables. We had one meeting where we had people standing outside the windows because we had no space inside. So a large one, definitely the largest room we can get, with the option of possibly a sliding divider. But that's certainly critical. With respect to the kitchen, as one of the cooks for the barbecue, yes, definitely either the clover side close to the field or in front of the field. Both those things would work very well for us. And I spoke to Randy, who is also one of the key barbecue hot dog providers, actually the chief hot dog provider. And he also agrees that either on the clover side or the field house side, either of those would work for us, but definitely not on the pool side. The other thing with respect to the bathrooms, I see in the drawings we have a boys' bathroom, a girls' bathroom, and a universal bathroom. Would it save space if we just kept it to universal bathrooms? That's sort of the most inclusive. And I saw a very good point about a toilet that was child friendly. So universal in all the senses, and maybe including just a smaller potty for the shorter legs. So that. Again, also with the idea of lobbies, yes, people congregate in lobbies, and that's a great opportunity for side conversations. But again, I would rather err on the side of a larger meeting multi-use room as opposed to space taken up for lobbies. The other nice to have is maybe a little corner for lockers. If people are able to, if we're able to have a large room for like yoga and stuff, participants may like to lock up their valuables. I'm not saying full-size lockers, but little half lockers where we could throw valuables in and just lock them with our own locks. I noticed in one of the drawings you have showers in the change rooms downstairs. We don't have showers now. Don't quite know how that would work. Our real need is just really for a warm space for skaters to be able to put on and take off their skates. The other point, and it might be a technical issue, you may not be aware that this site, the lower level, floods in the spring. So any electrical or mechanical room, I'm wondering if that is a good spot for them, or a spot for it if it was located on the lower level, or whether or not we could co-locate the upper and lower mechanical/heating rooms on the upper level, but that it could provide heat and electricity to both levels. Just a thought, given that I know you probably aren't aware of this flooding issue that we have in the spring. Another point I put in the comments is that the orientation of the rink is on an angle, and that is how it used to be. But the last couple of years, the city has installed some fixed lights, and that forces us now, in order to have light on the rink, for it to be parallel and quite close to the slope off Clover. And if you take a walk at the site, you'll notice where the lamps are, and that will give you an orientation of how the rink is situated, and that may give you more or less room with respect to the lower level. Rosella had noted in the comments that we also do need access for city trucks to access the lower level to put down the boards for the rink, and also for possibly, hopefully never, an emergency vehicle having to access that area. Those are my comments at the moment. Oh, yes, very important. We need a window from the office. So one of the functions for the rink guard or the rink attendants is that they need to monitor the rink during the skating. And so a window overlooking the rink is kind of critical. So if the office was located in that corner, what is that? The southeast corner with a window overlooking the rink, then the rink guard could sit in the office and keep an eye on the games and on the skaters to ensure that things are safe, and she can count the participants without having to constantly go outside. So that's kind of a orientation and a real necessity for this to be useful and functional for the rink maintenance. And also there isn't any indication of where the water supply would be, and that may be outside the scope of this, but we do really need to ensure that there is water supply both for the flooding of the rink, but also for the pool people. They need a water supply to be able to clean the pool. And finally, if we're doing this, it would be super to be able to have an outdoor water fountain for people. Currently, we have no water fountain when the building, water access to drinkable water when the building is closed. And that would be, a lovely thing to be able to have in the spring and in the fall when the building is closed. Thank you. Thanks,
Linda. I hope folks were taking notes on the on the architect and staff side. That was obviously Linda's someone who spent some significant time at the location and has put a lot of thought into this. Phil, do you want to start with some responses to? There were some questions and obviously comments in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, I mean, there's nothing that we haven't. Nothing surprised me out of that whole list. The kitchen on the field side, I think we're hearing that loud and clear. If people want to keep mentioning it, I'm a believer in, even if it's said, just say it again, because you can't drive anything too far home. But I think that is a pretty obvious request from the community. As far as the washrooms, we do have the luxury of space here, and the configuration of a male, female, and universal, call it the trifecta, it really ticks all of the boxes. So it may seem more than adequate, but really the only thing that we could possibly say would be eliminating the universal washroom. But surprisingly, that actually becomes a bit more of an expense, because there is required to be a change table. And if you have a male and a female, then the change table has to be replicated in both bathrooms. It becomes more expensive. Sometimes if you can afford the space, it actually becomes cheaper to provide the change table, which is also meant to accommodate adults as well. So it's not one of those baby change tables, but it's more kind of like a hydraulic change table. If you have that in one single universal washroom, that means everybody can access that. But if you start gendering the washrooms, you get into a problem where you actually wind up spending more money, because that piece of equipment can be quite expensive. So I do understand where everybody's coming from regarding the washroom, but this has been a very successful configuration that really, for lack of a better term, it just, if you have the room to do it, then it's sort of bulletproof. And with that said, we will have the universal washroom down at the skate change level. So that's kind of our rationale behind the washrooms.
Phil, sorry, just on that, I thought the comment from Linda was for why not have no gendered washrooms, just universal.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's agreement in the chat, I believe, to that idea as well. So like, why not have 2 universal washrooms and not worry about gendered washrooms? With, of course, as Linda said, an option for youngsters to be able to use perhaps a more accessible toilet for them.
Right.
Bill, can I comment a little bit about the washrooms?
Please do, John.
Okay, John Cron here. I'm the project manager. Just a little comment about the washrooms. The number of fixtures that the architect has designed is based on the occupant load. That I think that factors in the pool and the spaces, the multi-purpose rooms. And if we go with a universal washroom instead of what they provided there, then we would require even more space, I believe, to get the same number of water fixtures or water closets, toilets. So that's just, it would bump the cost up potentially a little bit as well. So just something to think about.
Okay. Phil, I know
Okay.
there's more to address there, so back to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the child toilets, I love that idea. I have 2 little ones myself, and that, I mean, that if we can figure out how to do that, I definitely mark that down. Room for the lockers. Funny thing, you're not the first one to tell me that. The city staff member that's in charge of the lifeguards, that's actually what he said. He said, my lifeguards need lockers. And I said, oh, okay. I guess currently they just kind of dump their stuff in there. They may actually have lockers as well. So either in the form of millwork or a more traditional metal locker, those are going to be included. So good catch. And while obviously the lifeguards would be using those during the day or while they're on duty, those would be available for public use at other times during the day. The shower, I agree. I'm not sure where it was, but I don't think there's a requirement for showers. The spring flooding, the Frechette will look into that, and we'll make a note on that. Straightening the rink out as well, also important. Co-locating the mechanical, we will definitely try to find as much efficiency as we can. And the water supply, you're absolutely right. There will be 2 water supplies, and they will be larger than a standard water supply. So what we've heard from city staff that run the maintenance programs is that a 1.5-inch hose, which is a little bit larger than your residential hose, would be of great benefit to both Randy, who's flooding this thing, as well as the lifeguard staff that's on the other side that have to clean the pool. There will be an outdoor water bottle filler with, I think, a fountain option beside it, but so that is included. It's just not shown here. The city trucks, I've got a call in to the guys who cut the lawn. I don't know how they get in there to cut the lawn, and I obviously don't want to take anything away from them. So we'll be looking at that as well as emergency access if it's required on the lower level as well, and making both of those things go hand in hand. The window to the office. So for the rink attendant, the window will be down in the change room. The rink attendant most likely won't be up top. They won't have a key to the entire field house. They'll just have a key to the skate change room, and we'll accommodate them with a window and a small desk to do homework, or if they want to bring a laptop or something else or whatever it is that they need. So that will be accommodated in the skate change room. And I think I got everything.
Okay. Linda can always put her hand back up if there's follow-up. We don't have a long list right now, so let's go to our next. Sorry, just looking at the time to make sure we're on track. Just going to our next resident with the hand up is Stephanie Fogel. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Fogel. So thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to clarify something about the washrooms. There seems to be a bit of confusion about universal washrooms, regular washrooms, barrier-free washrooms. Universal washrooms, as you say, are bigger. They're required by Ontario Building Code. They have future provisions for an adult change table. There's a lot of technology. There's like push to lock buttons. So they are relatively more expensive than a barrier-free washroom, which has a larger turning radius. Maybe it's a single stall with just a toilet and a sink. And then there's also the typical stall washrooms that we're seeing in some of the plans as well. So I think the community is requesting more kind of the single stall barrier-free type washrooms. They don't have all the extra text, so I just want to clarify that point. There are 2 universal washrooms shown on the plans. I was just wondering why there are 2, considering that a typical building you only need 1 or 1 within a couple of floors of each other. And if there could be 1, maybe it's in the main change room. If there are 2, is it because the change area for the skaters is open at a different time from the main field house? But wondering if one of them could be eliminated and one of them maybe made to a barrier-free change room instead, washroom. My other comment was, yes, there is a big grade change here of 1.5 meters. I don't know if that means there's any opportunity to bring in daylight above the lower level, or if the skate change will be going full height to meet the roof of the other building, or if there's some clerestory windows or maybe an opportunity there to bring in more light from the south side into the main space. I do think option 1 is the most successful, and that's mostly because of that connection to the children's play area. The other options kind of close themselves off to the north side, which I think is a shame. Although it does have some other good points going on for them as well. I would like to see some thought given to the retaining wall. Is that just going to be a straight concrete wall? Is there going to be some sort of interesting planting incorporated into that? What the solution is there for that? There's going to be some landscape integration for the exterior. Yeah, I think the ramp option for option 1 would be easiest to navigate. Stramps shown in option 3 they look cool, but they're a bit of a hazard to navigate, so prefer not to see that one. Option 3, I think the ramp is a bit far from the building, but as I think Linda pointed out, the vehicles do need to get down to the rink level. Maybe that could be widened and that becomes the vehicular access down to the ramp, down to the rink, sorry. I am very pro lobby, so I think that the lobbies are great spaces. And I think my final comment is just making sure all of the plumbing is moved off of an exterior wall and it's only located on an interior wall.
And Ben here, Steph's husband, one more question here just about in terms of the operational requirements about security and access control. Obviously, this building is probably just going to be under lock and key, but is there any requirements for security cameras in the soffits around the building to monitor the perimeter? Especially, I know there's concerns about in the back of the building about security. I wouldn't like to see that build, like the rear side facing the ravine, completely shut off from windows, because that's a huge loss to sightlines from the inside to beautiful wooded areas, as well as actually eliminating windows makes it more of an area for congregation for people to either sleep there, tent there, graffiti. If there's more visibility, if there's lights that are permanently around the building, and also any sort of security system on windows for breakage, and especially security cameras in the soffits, we can look to eliminate that. So I'm wondering if that's currently a requirement of the project.
Phil?
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Stephanie and Ben. That was great. Yeah, the 2 universal washrooms, because they're on different levels, we require 2 of them. So that's kind of a quick answer to that one. The retaining wall, I hope we can do something prettier than just a boring concrete retaining wall. So that is a great point as well. The points on the ramp, which, you know what, now that I've realized that I've neglected to say that the ramp configurations can be unplugged from any one of the options and plugged into a different option. So I guess I appeal to everybody, if you want to follow up with an email or on the Engage Ottawa site, as far as comments specifically regarding the ramps or the buildings. Like I said, option 1 seems to be kind of a standout for everybody, because we're gonna be able to retain the most trees. But the ramps, those are all interchangeable. So I really appreciated the pro lobby comment. I'm a convert to lobbies as well, out of just what I've experienced in the newer buildings that we have. And the security requirements, absolutely 100%. There's going to be modern security principles and technology put into this building. But the most interesting point was the windows, where we've talked about it at length as well, John, and I, and it really, and I've spoken with the community association about it. It's an unfortunate situation because, I mean, do we turn our backs on the ravine? Really is the question. That there'll be windows, there will certainly be windows. They might be higher. It's harder to smash a window that's up high than one that's right in front of you. So as far as getting, glimpses of the trees and the forest and Sawmill Creek to the west, we will do the best that we possibly can. But then the question comes, how much of it do we embrace, and at what point do we kind of turn our back on it to try and protect the building? So that's still a question that's out there. And I think yeah, I didn't that's it for Stephanie and Ben, but I did write everything down, and we're going to take all that forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Phil, for that, and Stephanie and Ben for the thoughtful intervention as well. Next on the speakers list, I can see Clément. Clément, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks to everyone for all these great efforts. I think perhaps it should be made more clear what the universal washroom is, as opposed to a single stall direct access. And Stephanie made comments about that, so that people can have a clearer idea of, I guess, a greater capacity in those cases where, for example, the yoga classes might be of all one gender that might all want to use the washrooms all at once. So that's a bit of an aside there. In option 2, there was mention of a podium and adjacent to the retaining wall for overview of the skating area. Is there also a podium intended in versions 1 and 3? And given that it might be available there in option 2, was there any thought to making that a bit bigger than would normally be the minimal size, in order to allow it to be used as a stage? If given the natural stadium on the east side of the whole extent of Clover, as a possible eventual use for youth plays or whatever other activities they might want to have there, for small concerts or whatever. Also, there hasn't been any mention of this, although Jay had very good comments about using this as a destination in instances of problem weather. Is the intent of this building to be a one that is resilient and can resist intemperate or extreme weather? And or has any thought been given in the eventual harder fixed design to taking advantage of the south facing clear treeless areas of the rink and the field, in order to be able to harvest either solar just from photovoltaic or a little bit of extra heat? If we're looking at, for the heating system, if we're looking at heat pumps, number one, is it going to be air conditioning? And if it is going to be air conditioned, then if heat pumps are going to be used for heat in the winter, we can maybe take advantage of making the pool season longer by, in the summertime, using the heat pump to dump excess heat directly into the pool. So I guess the idea would be perhaps to have a clearer understanding of the intent of the envelope and how it can then perhaps be used to leverage some of the other activities around the building. Thanks.
Thank you, Clément. Phil?
Yeah, Clement, thank you. That was great. I remember you from the rooftop, the stage or the concert space. First thing, I think that we will be able to catch sunlight from the second story coming into from the south across the building. Just the differences in the grade change. I'm not sure where those windows will land. The option we're looking at now, there's obviously a closet that would be in the way. But in some of the options, it would work a little bit better. Also on that thought, there is an opportunity for a green audit. The city, they have some funding available for buildings before construction to be audited for green features. So we will be most likely taking advantage of that to see what else we can do to not only incorporate green features in the building from the get-go, but also future-proof as well. Going back to the rooftop, unfortunately, as you probably know, because it seems like you know a thing or two, the waterproofing, it can become a bit cost prohibitive. So and not only that, but if we were to use the roof for the skate change area, it would have to be appropriately waterproof, appropriately decked, and a railing would have to be incorporated. All of those things, they may seem like small things, but they quickly add up to becoming a very large expense. And that's why when we were working and discussing things,
Phil, we can ditch
with
the
the
idea of
architect,
having a waterproofed deck over the change area. It was just mentioned, I think was it John or Robert, that with that podium area
on the exterior, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I noted that one too. So this, where there's kind of a retaining wall in this area, would be looking down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, that one caught my eye as well. So we did, it does, the ramp, it may not be the best ramp, but the use of that retaining wall is nice. Of course, in one of the other ones, there's kind of the amphitheater kind of effect here, right? The ramp kind of zigzags back and forth with these large steps in between that creates kind of like a natural amphitheater seating. Exactly. Both are appealing. So
Okay.
yeah, the thought is there. The thought is there.
A bit of tweaking there would take care of that right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that helpful exchange, Phil and Clément. Julie and Kevin, I see your hand next. After we hear from you, I'm actually going to also just look at some of the comments that we've seen in the chat. Phil, I know you can save those on your end as well as on our end we can, but so that you can review them later. But I'll just provide a bit of a summary of anything we've missed. Julie and Kevin, please go ahead.
Hi. So I have a question, then I have some comments. Just the first question is, how much bigger is this supposed to be than the existing field house?
That's a great question. So Robert, I don't know if you're still there, but the other thing, Robert, that I was hoping you could touch on was the size of these multi-use rooms.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going to go with this too.
So I'm still here. Yeah. How much bigger is, I can't tell you how much bigger it is, but it is bigger. And in some respects more efficiently planned. A couple of things. There's no showers. I don't know where that came from. The universal washrooms, both of them have adult change tables. So maybe the rectangle for the table was seen as a shower. The multi-purpose room. So multi-purpose room number one, if you were seating people in there in loose chairs facing, in one direction, so there's a speaker, you could seat over 100 people. If you put the people at tables and chairs, you would be kind of around 90 people. And that's just an arbitrary, that's sort of a planned layout. I mean, obviously you can be less efficient or more efficient. Room number 2, its size, it could seat in loose chairs, again in rows with a speaker at one end, about 68 people. And if they were sitting at tables, about 50 people. So they're good sized rooms. They may look small, but they're actually very efficient and generous in size. If I could comment on the washrooms, if you look at any one of the universal washrooms, it's just slightly smaller than half of a typical washroom there. So from a building code perspective, we have to design to the number of people that could use the building. So we have 3 fixtures basically per sex. So we would need considerably larger area to accommodate universal washrooms, and they all would have to be accessible.
Okay, and Julie and Kevin, I think there was some comments beyond those questions, so please go ahead.
Yes. So my first sort of comment is, I mean, I think that the angle of option 1 is kind of interesting, and I think I've heard that one reduces tree loss the most. But my question would be, like, does that angle have anything to do with anything else, right? Or is it just sort of a bit of a random angle picked and dropped onto the site, right? So how does that building interact with the site on that angle? Because I think that's something to consider, right? And then on top of that, so while I think that the angle's interesting, I think that it's actually probably, I don't remember what option 3 looks like because it hasn't come up again. I've only seen 1 and 2 recently, but the inside of option 1 to me is the least friendly in way of the layout and the front entrance. I think option 2 and 3 are more appealing at the entrance. I think they're more welcoming, right? So I think that's something to really consider. One thing I think that I do like about what's been put in some of the options is the windows to the ravine, because I think being able to look out at nature is important too. So I think it was option 1 again that had the bathrooms flanking a lot of that west facing wall, which then you're losing all your sort of sight. Another comment is, so we're talking about the room sizes, and it's really easy to think about how we've used the room in the past or the building in the past. And I know that the rooms have been far too small for our community meetings and frankly, anything that we've wanted to do, whether it be a play group or, Wednesday night program, they've been quite small. So when we think about, do we need 2 rooms? Should we just make 1 really big room? We're kind of thinking of it maybe in terms of how we've used the building in the past, as opposed to thinking about how we will use the building in the future. So that's just something to consider, 1 room versus 2. So as I said, for me, I kind of like option 2. Option 3, I think there's some good stuff about it too. I think both of them, I like how the lobby just is more prominent at the street side where you're coming in. So it's a little more welcoming. And then you've got both of your multi-purpose rooms close together, which I think kind of works fairly well. I personally kind of like the idea of ungendered washrooms, like having 3. I do understand what I've heard already though, so that may not be as feasible, but having the way these are now, I think you've got 2 toilets in either gendered washroom and then 1 accessible one. So I kind of get that, but I do like it, when I go into a restaurant and there's 3 washrooms and I can pick whichever one, I kind of like that, because then you're not just always waiting for a particular one. And then just a comment, somebody or multiple people had suggested about small toilets for children. My understanding is small toilets do tend to clog, so maybe we need to have something more like a really sturdy stool that can't be taken for the washrooms, so that, you know, yes, we're acknowledging the younger people who'll be using it, but not causing plumbing issues through a smaller toilet. And then somebody else had commented about the kitchen, and they prefer having stuff on the north end, the park, sort of the playground side, particularly thinking about barbecue nights. What I can envision happening now is there's this sort of going to be this greater lobby entrance welcoming area, sort of on the east side, right, between the street and the building. And it looks like in most of them they're paved. So I could see a lot of people congregating there. So not so much down on the field anymore, but in front of the building. So that's just a different way to think about it too, is the building's going to be configured differently. So where we meet ultimately, like, people will hang out in a different spot. So.
And it opens up to the playground and to the ice rink at the same time, which is, I think, a nice feature.
Okay. Bill, did you want to comment on any of that before we move on?
Well, you made me think of something, barbecue storage. So that I was sort of imagining the barbecue happening, and then I was imagining, where the heck does this barbecue go? So anyway, I've made a note of that. The windows, I mean, it to Sawmill Creek, it's sort of, it is one of those major components of this that we're going to really have to kind of put some thought into it. I also love that you use the lens of, it's important how we use the building now, but how are we going to use the building? And city staff was actually very, very interested as well in what the future of this building would hold. It's like, well, if we're starting to do all of this, then what are the limitations of this building? And it's, I mean, really, we're hoping that there won't be that many limitations for what the uses of the building can be, which is kind of what all of this, the whole planning process is all about. The angle, that's a great question. So Robert, if you're still there, was that to avoid the trees? I mean, was that a conscious effort to say?
Well, it was absolutely. The other two schemes are longer, and they cut in more into the north end of the site, if you will. If you look at scheme one, option one, you kind of see it kind of nestles in amongst all those trees.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nice. And unfortunately, we did put a north arrow on this site plan, and generally it's to the north. So it's slightly north, southwest a little bit. I live in a house, or I have a house that I designed with balconies and porches that are 6'6" deep. And I was amazed in the winter when the sun is low coming through my windows. It heated, the major rooms in that house, and my furnace didn't come on. And in the summer, with that 6'6" and the summer solstice, my windows are completely shaded, so I don't have the cooling. And I know we've been thinking about overhangs on this building. So we're very conscious of, solar gain and energy. We've designed passive houses, LEED buildings, and that knowledge will go into the design of this building, although it's not a requirement, but the fundamental design principles are pretty standard today and very easy to incorporate. So you should have a pretty nice building. And I'm hearing that at least, a fairly large percentage of you really like, to capture the opportunity of looking at the park to the Sawmill Creek to the west. And I agree. I think I'd like to do that, but we have to be a bit conscious of security and the issues related to that. But there's a wonderful way to engage with nature, taking advantage of that.
Right on.
Excellent. Thanks, Robert.
Phil, anything further to add before we move to Susan?
No, I'm good. I was just starting to look through some of the comments, but I'm
Yeah, there's lots there. I mean, feel
there's
free
lots,
to
yeah.
type in if you want. Okay, yeah, Julie and Kevin, thanks again for the for those comments. They were quite helpful. Susan, over to you.
Thank you. Oh,
No, we had you. Now we
oh,
don't.
there we go. There we
Yeah.
go. Yes, thanks. So, I guess I was surprised that that the meeting room 1 was gonna be able to hold, and maybe I heard it wrong, 90
Yep.
people.
That's correct.
Okay, and then meeting room 2 would be, or sorry, meeting room
S-
1, 100 people, and meeting room 2 would be
70.
around 70 people.
Yeah. If you go back to the first slide of the existing building, Phil,
Yep. Here we go.
I think what's important here, the roof that you see on our plans is the roof. The walls that we've shown in this drawing is the actual building.
Mhm.
So the two, either left or right, the two rooms on the right-hand side are smaller in total area than our meeting room number 1. Yeah. So I don't know if you're putting 40 people in a part of that, you have a problem, yes.
Right, so in the meeting rooms that we have,
They're small, they're tiny.
yeah, the maximum we could get in there would be 15, 20 people. And
Yeah,
that would be jammed packed shoulder to shoulder.
yeah, and meeting room number 1 in our scheme has got to be, well, I won't say 50% bigger, but it's substantially bigger. Well, is that the same area? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's at least 50% bigger.
Yeah.
So then that would mean, what, 50% bigger? If we're putting in 20 people now, there would be 40 people?
Oh, well, by code, up to 100 in loose chairs like you would put up in a classroom.
Right, okay. Okay, because I think the comments around the 1 meeting room is, and correct me, people who are online, are a result of the small meeting rooms that we do have and the need for a large meeting room, 1 large meeting room, to accommodate, 40 or upward people, because I think our maximum AGM numbers for our AGM were under 40. So and we usually hold that at another venue because we can't fit everybody into the current field house. So I just wanted to clarify that, because they seem like quite a big space then for if you can put 100 people in or 90 people in. The other comment is with respect to fewer washrooms. Again, I think those are stemming from the need to maximize the amount of meeting space that we have, because the meeting space is really important. That's where I think the current field house doesn't meet our needs the most in terms of trying to get enough a space big enough to accommodate even our current meetings, let alone future meetings, as Julia said. My other comment was in terms of the office meeting space, and again, this is generated from trying to maximize general meeting space, is that I'm wondering, and again, people please react, do we really need a meeting room or an office room? Or could that, I guess, on the design, be a 3rd meeting room with some office space for storage, like a few file cabinets, because I don't think.
And that's the idea, Susan. Sorry to jump in, because that actually, so city staff, when I met with other parks and facilities staff, essentially that is what may wind up becoming the locker room. So yes, but there's kind of, what do I want to say? There's the potential for 2 different city storage uses in the future. One is those lifeguards that need those locker rooms. Somebody else mentioned that, even, people coming in to do yoga to wanting to use locker rooms. And then there's kind of, this is an unmanned building. There's no plan to have it manned. However, if that day does come, then there would be, you'd have to have room for a computer, a stapler, a hole punch, a printer, like that sort of material. So that office / meeting room, that's kind of what it's morphing into right now, is kind of maybe for now, it would look kind of like a locker room with a desk, but ultimately it would become, maybe the locker room could continue, but that desk would then be used by somebody. I mean, if it's an after school program, somebody there welcoming people as they're arriving, and it's something like that. So that space is kind of it has a question mark on it. So we don't know what it might wind up being, but we're pretty sure that we're gonna need it. But with that said, let's make it as useful as possible today.
And so if that were to be a third meeting room, how many people, what might that accommodate?
So that little one, it looks to be about 20 square meters.
That's big.
That's pretty big, yeah. I mean, once lockers and millwork, say if it's cubbies and it's not like a locker, like a metal locker with a lock, or it's just cubbies with a little kind of box on the bottom for shoes, that begins to eat the space away. But that may be what winds up happening to that, is it just winds up being, like I said, a desk with these cubbies that kind of go around the room.
Okay.
And not necessarily a change room, just kind of more a personal belonging storage room.
Right. Okay. Okay. And the other question I had was, is it possible, because it's on 2 different levels, to build out, to build the top level out over the skating change room area, to expand the footprint of the top level?
Well, it's Robert speaking. So nothing's impossible, but there's only about a 5-foot grade difference. Okay. So the upper level would have to go up, probably 5 or 6 feet above it where it currently is. So you'd be having to ramp up into the building.
Right.
So it doesn't really make sense.
Okay,
so that kind of matches my earlier comment, where we don't know where the windows on the second floor are going to wind up, because we don't know how tall that lower area is going to be exactly. Like it might be kind of, what do I want to say, like a half story.
Right. Is that possible then, if that's maybe out of the question, to make that into some kind of a balcony or canopy, like a place where people can go outside from one of the meeting rooms, to use that as like a deck or a viewing area that's outside?
Well, again, it's accessibility. So the roof of the skates change vestibule or room would be higher than the existing grade. So you'd have to go up to it to use it as a deck.
Okay.
And to go up to it, we would need a stair and an elevator to make it accessible.
Right. And we had talked about an earlier meeting about elevators, trying to avoid elevators.
Yeah,
because of the cost.
they're very expensive. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But I was going to just mention, if you went back to the schemes 2 or 3, Phil, I know the preference is scheme 1, but when I look at the office meeting room, the discussion about using it as a meeting room, in terms of efficiency, you can slap my hands if you want. If I had the mechanical and electrical room accessed from inside the meeting room and the janitor's closet, then I would capture the corridor as part of the meeting room space. That room would get even bigger.
Oh, you mean this?
Well, the whole corridor, actually.
Oh, because the water closet's on the, oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
So if you felt there's an yeah, I would capture all of that into the office meeting area. So the room is about 200 square feet. We'd be adding, another 75 square feet to it. Becomes a pretty nice room. So then you'd have room for lockers and a meeting table
And a slop sink in the corner.
and you had access the janitor's closet and the M&E room from inside the meeting room. So you
Oh,
don't
just access it. So the sink wouldn't actually be okay.
No, yeah. Or again, I can replan that. The access to the janitors could be from the other corridor. But there's potential there for better planning on this particular scheme. And maybe opportunities on scheme 1 and 2 or 3 as well.
Okay.
Good ideas coming from the meeting tonight, folks.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Okay, so the other thing, I just want to go back to the bathrooms, the washrooms. And you're saying that the number of washrooms is really dictated by the capacity of the building.
Correct.
So what you're saying is we need 3 bathrooms on the top to accommodate approximately 170 to 190 people if it was at full capacity.
Well, actually what you need, there's 2 fixtures in each section, each one in the male and 2 fixtures in the female, and 1 universal. A universal washroom, according to the building code, counts for 2. So in fact, there's a need for equivalent of 6 fixtures to satisfy this building on the upper level.
Okay, 6 fixtures. So is it possible to not have male and female and just to have like anybody can access those, like keep the universal, but have the others not gender specific?
Well, the answer is anything's possible. I just have to make sure that I have the privacy, I guess, in the stalls to make them non-gender specific.
So each bathroom has 2 stalls is what you're saying, and so it's
Yeah.
so it's like it's stalls as opposed to individual bathrooms. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I hear
Well,
what
and
you're
Robert, I think maybe another point, and please, I'm not an architect by any means, so this is why I'm glad you're here. But if there are more smaller washrooms, they still need to be accessible, right? Like,
absolutely. You still need the same accessibility. So those circles, the 5-foot diameter circles, still have to exist for the accessibility, to meet the accessibility standards.
so even if there's 3 separate washrooms, that means each stall has to be accessible as
No,
well as at least
no.
one of the sinks in each of those.
Well, you still need at least one accessible. Well, I have to do the math, but you still need accessible stalls. So right now I need 1 for men and 1 for women. So presumably I will need 2 for a gender neutral washroom. And then you still have to be able to get in front of the sink. So the 5-foot circle in front of the sinks would remain. So all that circulation remains the same.
And
this
the
is something
universal counts for 2.
I would have to study, Phil.
Okay.
It's the movements are complex in a way.
Yeah, and I was looking at it not from I thought this was like an individual washroom and an individual washroom, 1 for men, 1 for women, as opposed to 1 washroom for women with 2 stalls and 1 washroom for men with 2 stalls. So I was reading the diagram incorrectly.
No, I have 1 washroom for men with 2 stalls and 1 for women with 2 stalls in this.
Yes, now I understand that, but
Yeah.
what I was saying before is that I only thought it was a room, like 1 room, 1 toilet, 1 sink, 1 that would be for women, and the same thing would be, I didn't realize there were 2 stalls in each room. So that changes it for me, and I read that incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
But I'd like to, I would support non-gendered specific washrooms, so that if there are 4 washrooms there, then anybody can use them at any time. And even you'd be able to use the universal washrooms too. So you're not having to, you know, as we do at the NAC, the women wait to use the washrooms. And there's a long line out of the door, and the men get to go in, and you know, there's no lineup. So I appreciate that for sure. If you can work that out. And what was my other comment? Build out over the change room. I think I said that. We had talked also about having some kind of a reception area or balcony or something off the main, off of the multi-use room, the larger multi-use room, that you could move people to the outside, whether it's like a deck or a patio or something outside with big doors.
Yeah, so in this particular scheme, room number 1, there is a door to the outside. We just haven't drawn any patio.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so there's the door, and this is all kind of paved area. So, I mean, people could gather as they see fit. The only thing we did identify, and this was another comment when I did the staff comment, was that connecting the kitchen to the room directly. That in this one, they liked it, but they said, well, if you need to get something into this room from the kitchen, you can pass it through. But if you're a person, you got to go all the way around. So city staff caught that one.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, no, we just need a little cheater. And that could be like one of those, you know, half doors that open or something, basically anything to just get people through.
Okay.
But this is great. A lot of great comments. And I have to admit, the universal washroom thing, I have taken this kind of as a foregone conclusion, where everything in all the other buildings that we've built recently, this is, like I said, this is kind of like the bulletproof answer to bathrooms. So Robert, I don't know if you can answer this one on the fly, but as far as the universal washrooms counting as 2, if there are 3 universal washrooms, do they each count as 2?
I don't know. I don't know that the code is there yet.
Okay.
It's so new. But Phil, you know, and John, if you want us to explore that option, the washroom option, I mean, we're happy to do that.
I think that many people are commenting on the washrooms, so it is kind of an important element where people have expressed their views about. So yeah, to revisit that would be helpful.
Yeah, I would just want to, I mean, in the end, I would think it would boil down to the number of fixtures. So I'd almost want to kind of protect that, where right now we have the universal counts as 2, and then there's 2 in each of the others. So technically there's 5 fixtures. But if we go down to 3 universals where they each count as 2, then we've only got 3 fixtures. So we're kind of down 3 fixtures in that scenario. Like we're down 3 toilets basically, where we had 3 more in this scenario.
No, I don't think you'll be down. I don't think the numbers will change.
Okay.
It's just the efficiency of it. Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly happy to look at that.
That'd be great. I just want to finish off by saying, yes, I support like having a window that overlooks the rink area for the rink attendants. I support perhaps, I don't know if it's possible to co-locate the mechanical rooms. Again, our primary focus is having a lot of meeting area. The kitchen, like you said, having the door and a window accessing into the multi-use room. Line of sight, mechanical rooms. Kitchen, the kitchen, yeah, you had already, sorry, I'm getting confused here, but you already indicated what I was going to say about accessing the kitchen. So that's great. That's all from me.
Thanks, Susan. I'll just note we're at the end of the scheduled time. We'll push a little longer, of course. We've only have two hands up. One is a new speaker. Oh, sorry. I also wanted to say there's two people I forgot to acknowledge at the outset of this call, and I hope you both forgive me. But Susan is our community association president, so thank you, obviously, for being here, and just wanted to acknowledge your role in the community. And the other person is Ariella Summit from our office, who's the parks lead for our office, and will be really, I'm supporting her on this file, or we're working on this file together. So I just wanted to acknowledge she's here. She's listening as well tonight. So apologies to both of you for forgetting that. Okay, look, I've got Kelly next. I don't think we've heard from you yet, Kelly. So please go ahead.
Well, I know you guys want to go with option number 1 is the main one, but the only issue I have mainly with that design is where the kitchen's located. Is there any way to rotate that multi-purpose room and put the kitchen more towards the paved area, towards the parking lot there?
Sure.
Is what I'm wondering, because I know with Randy doing his barbecuing and all that, it's maybe easier to be on that side if we're going with option 1 than having it on the far side, because it's really not giving us access that much to it.
We can do anything.
Okay, and and with the coats, where the coats and all that go, is it possible to put lockers there instead of actually in the office and like just have them along the wall?
Definitely, yeah.
Well,
I
we're
mean,
showing them
yeah.
there, Phil, right there.
Well, is this
Yeah.
is this a closet or is this a bench?
Oh, sorry, that's a bench. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking of maybe just putting lockers there so it could be multi-used by everybody in the long run.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's just the 2 comments I had.
Thank you, Kelly. Look, I have 2 hands up now. Jay, I'm actually going to go to you first. Stephanie, I'll get to you after that. I think I'll cut it after we hear from you a second time, Stephanie. But I want to go to Jay because I don't think we've heard from Jay yet, and then we'll end with Stephanie. Okay, Jay, please go ahead.
Sorry about that, Stephanie. That's horrible. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll just go quick. I just don't see that this is big enough to even support our community when it gets built in 3 years. I mean, our population is growing so much. I put in the comment there the number of builds. We have like 725 units in addition to the 2,000 that are already in our community according to the last census. That will have people in them by the time this thing is built. And like we're already squished in there, like it's not meeting our needs. We're going elsewhere for meetings. So my question in the comments was like, what population did you base this on? Was it our current population or a future population? If so, what population? Like I know this ship has probably sailed on that, but I see some of the other plans like number 1 and number 2, it can sort of be extended on a bit of an angle and it looked a lot larger. Looked like it had larger gathering spaces so that like 100 people, 100, 200 people could get into it if we needed to for either an emergency situation where we can't breathe the air, or we can't have electricity, or we can't have heat, or we can't have protection from the heat. I don't see that how that can. I know that's not supposed to support our whole community association. But it'd be nice if the city of Ottawa, the money we're investing in this, would actually build something that would be great for our community for more than just like 3 years. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say on that.
It's a great comment, and
the population.
It's a great comment, and I really do understand it. And I mean, essentially, what this is the replacement of the existing field house, and
but that's not sufficient.
I agree, but
we're replacing it because it's not sufficient for our needs. So are we spending taxpayer money to just replace a building that's not sufficient? I don't know. That's all I think. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I know. And it's not that I disagree. It's just in this particular case, it's a replacement of the building, and what we are replacing it with is hopefully going to be superior to what is there. As far as the space constraints, I mean, if you were looking for a bigger building, what amenities would we start having to lose and trade off within the park? So it really does come back to a land issue and how the city and how the Parks Department, my department, goes about collecting land to accommodate the density that we're seeing and that we're feeling. And it is something that we're working on in different avenues. But in this particular instance, I mean, we're looking to replace within the space that we have. But I don't disagree with you. It's not falling on deaf ears by any means. I mean, I'm the Parks Department, and I mean, you know, you got the counselor here as well. We're all on the same side. Not to say you're preaching to the choir, but you know, rest assured that we hear you, we see you, we understand. And in other avenues, we're fighting for it as well.
Phil, just two things off of based off that. It might be helpful to get and I think somebody asked this early on too, of what the difference is in terms of the capacity for occupancy between what we have now and what's being proposed here. It sounds like we're looking at doubling or more the occupancy numbers. So I don't know what those actual figures are, and I think that'd be helpful to hear that. And I just wanted to add, like, yeah, this should be this should be a community center. Heron Park deserves a community center. The city's not funding it. Our office is frustrated that we have to fund most of this project through cash in lieu of parkland funds at the ward level. The city budget should be funding this. It should have years ago when there was a plan to, and it should be doing it now. But this is where we're at. We didn't want to wait any longer, so we've committed the funds from the ward level, which are very limited. So I just wanted to add that as well. But yeah, Jays, you're 100% correct. The other communities in our ward have a community center. Why doesn't Heron Park? Anyways, look, I have Stephanie here. Please go ahead, and then we'll wrap up after that.
Yeah, just a couple of comments back to the washroom issue. So the washrooms are triggered directly by the size of the multi-purpose room. So if it says OPC says 100 people, the washrooms are sized accordingly, but you can stick a design limit on the room if that was something we're interested in, saying 60 people max, that cuts your washrooms in half. But to Jay's point, is that something we really want if our community is growing and we're actually looking to the future and not just replacing what is currently there? So maybe the number of washrooms that are currently shown are actually what we need. And then Ben had a
question. So I guess my question actually was a very good, kind of question. I have a very good follow-up to what the conversation just was about funding and budget. My kind of question is leading to the next steps about project development. My question is, has any sort of Class D estimates been done at this stage for these options to ensure that we're staying aligned with what the project budget is? Because my concern is we have a wish list of everything we obviously want, but we don't want to go down a route of let's design everything and focus, like let's put everything on our wish list into a building only to have it cost double what right now we can afford and have the project shelved again. So I'm kind of worried about making sure that we're checking in against how the design is progressing against what our budget is to make sure that this project becomes a reality and it doesn't just get shelved again.
And also to add on to that, the city's high performance building standards, which are hopefully going to get implemented soon, but that may also trigger some cost increases that aren't captured in the earlier budget. So something else to keep in mind as well, because I'd love to see this be kind of approaching net zero passive house standards.
So the interesting thing is it's becoming easier for us to argue. So the high performance standards, essentially it's incorporating green design features. It's becoming easier for us to argue that because it's surprising that we're finding allies in our maintenance group that they're saying, you guys do know that if we put this money in up front, it's actually cheaper to operate the building in the long run. So we've kind of, on many occasions moving forward, we're joining hands with them. And usually the maintenance guys, they're a bit grumpier. I mean, don't tell them I said that, but they're kind of grumpy. So it's really nice that we found this common ground with them and them saying, as an example, most likely this building will not have a gas service. It'll be a fully electric building right off the top. So we're already leaning towards that. You covered a lot of ground, and I don't want to prolong this too far. We do have an estimate for the building on the conceptual building. So not these specific drawings that we have, But on the room sizes, we do have a budget. We are still on budget. With that said, we have seen an absolute insane cost escalation within the last 5 years, from 2019 to 2023. We now know that costs have escalated 40%. So basically what this building is 40% more. And I don't know if you're pointing up saying what's going to happen in 2024, but it's easy to imagine what may happen. Although it seems like things are sort of stabilizing in Ottawa. I don't know if it's because the LRT is slowing down. Construction companies are starting to behave a little bit differently. Not to use the term kind of, they're a little bit more hungry for work. So we're kind of happy about that. But maybe the last thing I can say is we just need to hurry up and get this thing built. Is probably the easiest way to sum up your concerns, and our concerns as well, is that we need to keep rolling. So we'll take everything that we've collected tonight. I'll talk to the counselor's office. I don't know if we should come back again. I mean, it seems, yeah, we'll have to discuss to see where we're going to go. But we took in a lot of really, really good points. Nothing earth-shattering. I think we're moving in the right direction. So I'm really happy about that. And with John's guidance and Robert's expertise as well, I think we're going to be able to get there. So we are currently, the schedule is moving towards this being ready to tender in January. Whether it actually will be tendered is a different question. But the drawings will be ready to tender, but whether we will have everything in place to actually tender, that's the biggest question. We don't currently foresee any delays, but again, once we put numbers to the building that we are hoping to go forward with, we'll have a clearer picture. But the message is clear. And it's being echoed by us and certainly the counselor's office that we need to get this built as soon as possible before things get more expensive.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. Yeah, Sean was just pursuing the city treasurer in the hallways of City Hall today on this precise subject. And there's a whole budget that we need to talk to him about, but this was priority one for us. So thanks for that. And look, we're over time here by about 15 minutes, but I think it was well worth it. I'm really impressed with the amount of feedback that we heard tonight, the quality of it. Obviously, we're among company that cares a lot about this community, this space, and has put a lot of thought into this. So it's helpful for our office too. And thanks to the anyways, thanks to everyone. Thanks to the community for coming out and speaking your mind. Thanks, Phil, and the architect team and our other city staff for being here tonight and participating in this. Folks, look, I know I saw some questions in the comments comments and questions in the chat as well. Phil, I think you're downloading those. I've downloaded them if you haven't, so you can just ask me. We are going to want to email follow-up if possible. If you feel like you haven't got an answer to your question, just please email Phil. Feel free to copy us as well. I believe I put Phil's email in the chat earlier. I will just put it in the chat again in case you missed it. All right, I think that's enough. Thank you so much, everyone, again, and have a great night. See you soon.
Bye.